Good evening. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for the wonderful work you do here at Cultivate. And as a teacher, it is indeed a great joy to see people like yourself really taking ideas and putting them to practice in ways that really matter, really affect people's lives. And I'm happy to say that the kind of work you're doing here is being mirrored by other places around the world and a number of places that our graduates have started analogous centers, especially in Canada. There are at least 6 centers that our graduates have started in the last few years and so forth. So that's very thrilling, and it very much fits into the theme of our evening, that about 21st century spirituality and also the role of education. I was thinking that it was 40 years ago last month that I flew in a naive, very young priest from Dubuque, Iowa, of all places. I flew to Europe, and I stopped here in Ireland first in Shannon Airport and stayed a week with the Dominicans there. And even though it was August, it was so cold and so damp, I remember they put bricks in my bed with me to warm me up, and I knew I was in a foreign country. This was going to be a new experience. And it was the beginning of my broader, deeper education, coming to Europe and meeting my mentor, Father Chanou, the wonderful French Dominican, who's really the grandfather of liberation theology, who was silenced by Pope Pius XII for 12 years, forbidden to publish, but who was brought out of the cold by the Second Vatican Council, and it was he who named the creation spiritual tradition for me. But I realized in thinking about returning here today that it's all Ireland's fault that I got in all the trouble I've been in. Hadn't stopped here 40 years ago, life would have been different, much less interesting, I'm sure. And I was also thinking about various stops I've had here, and 2 memories come to mind, because I think it says something about the Irish soul. The very first time I lectured in Ireland, and I think it was about 19 years ago, Ireland was in quite a depression economically at the time, very different from today, and all the young people were exiting because they couldn't get work. I remember kind of feeling this concern among the young people. And in one of my talks, altogether spontaneously, I said, well, now, if you young people don't feel part of the culture, you don't feel part of the economic system because you can't get work, go start your own culture. And that's what a monastery is. Go start your own monastery and develop your own economic system and your own community and your own education, and go for it. 2 years later, I returned, and lo and behold, there had been a 19-year-old in the audience who started his own monastery. And I went and visited it. It was up in a rocky place by the water, a former fort in North Ireland. And he had in his community a marvelous, diverse group. He had Northerners and Southerners. He had Protestants and Catholics, 50-year-olds and 20-year-olds. He had gays and straights, married and unmarried, kids, goats, sheep, the whole works. And I was so struck by this, that the Irish actually listen to ideas and go try them on. There's much less intellectual masturbation, I find, in Ireland than there is in most countries in Europe. That there's something about putting ideas to work and putting them into our behavior that happens when you get going in Ireland. And the only analogous experience I have is working with Native Americans. They too see ideas not as ends in themselves, but as forces for influencing and altering and shifting our behavior. So I spell this out for you because as a semi-outsider, actually I'm 50% Irish myself, but not living here, I think you should be reminded of your strength, that the intellectual life, scholarship is very important, but it's about what we do with it. It's not just about sitting around with tenure and putting out books and dusting our bookshelves. It is about truly affecting history and society, and thereby bringing spirit in and through. And one other experience that I was thinking about was about 10 years ago, I think it was. I was in Cork, and I was lecturing in Cork, and we finished around 10:15 at night. 12:30 in the morning, I'll never forget this. People were gathered in groups of 3 and 4, arguing and fighting and passionately pouring through these ideas. I was just amazed. Again, this doesn't happen anyplace else. Most people politely applause at 10 and go home, or watch TV or something. But the Irish hang around for the sport of thinking together and chewing these ideas out and saying, okay, and where does this take us? So again, I just want to put this out there because these are my experiences of interacting with people on this island, and I think it's very important because really it comes down to the leadership that our species is looking for today, and certainly our Western civilization. And this leadership has to be, yes, both intellectual and activist. It has to include the heart as well as the mind. And I think that the Celtic people have an amazing role to play here.